continue at the conclusion of the meeting for those that are in the queue that have not had a chance to speak in the initial 20 minutes. The City Council may not discuss or take action on issues not on the meeting agenda, except that members of the City Council or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by persons exercising public testimony rights. The other part that I would read is members of the public shall direct comments to the body as a whole and not to staff, individual members of the body, or the public. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks about members of the body, staff, or the public, or who shall become boisterous or threatening or personally abusive of the body, staff, or members of the public, shall be asked by the mayor to cease and desist such activity and may be requested or required to leave the meeting in the event that the behavior continues to disrupt the meeting proceedings. With that, the first speakers will be Deron Johnson, followed by Hiram Cormier Jr., followed by Gene Burns. We'll bring in Deron Johnson. Johnson, go ahead. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Deron Johnson, and I am lead pastor at the Calvary Christian Center of Pasadena. And I've lived in the city of Pasadena for 12 years. My advocacy for affordable housing in Pasadena was born out of my own experience of having to move from church-provided housing and locate my own housing here in the city. My involvement increased as I became aware of two elderly persons who were displaced from La Pintoresca Senior Apartments. Over the past 5 years, these two individuals have moved across Los Angeles County from Lancaster to Lakewood in temporary housing, hoping to return permanently to live in the city that they love. But in order for them and others to return and have a qualitative life, affordable housing is needed. I support the rezoning of church land by right, which gives and increases the potential for developers to partner with nonprofits and ensures that affordable housing is not confined to one area of Pasadena. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm sorry, instead of calling out 30 seconds, I'm going to try ringing a bell, and then maybe that will help instead of interrupting the speakers. Hiram Cormier Jr., followed by Gene Burns, followed by Bert Newton.
All right.
Hiram, go ahead. Minute and 30.
Okay. All right, so yeah, for the millionth week, I'm here to tell you need to fire the cops who killed Anthony McClain. There are really no other words I can use to describe why that needs to happen. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that I'm sure at least some of you have kids and you wouldn't want to see your kid get shot in the back. So if that doesn't sit well with you, why let it happen to somebody else's child? Those cops need to be fired. Obviously, if you have two working brain cells, you can see that it's not right. So, on top of that, outside of, or in addition to that, it's like people in Pasadena, just like the rest of the country, just like the rest of the county, suffer every fucking day, whether it be black, brown, or even other colors. And you guys don't do much to help, especially the black and brown people. All you do is just sit there and pontificate and politic about pretty much nothing and do nothing. I think it was interesting that last week, Revis, you threw that little meeting. And it's cool, I guess, that you show some concern regarding certain shootings, but when it comes to another shooting, y'all don't really show no urgency at all. Why is that? In fact, why is it that you have meetings about shit instead of actually addressing things to stop it? Because I can tell you cameras won't help.
Your time has expired.
Fuck, man. Fuck y'all. Fuck everyone.
Gene Burns, followed by Bert Newton, followed by Alan Shea, followed by Olden Denham. Gene, if you can unmute. Gene Burns, are you able to unmute? *6 to unmute. No, it's a... Burns, can you unmute? Okay, we'll go on to Bert Newton, followed by Alan Shea, followed by Olden Denham. Bert?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Council. After a year delay, the proposal to rezone church land for affordable housing is finally back at the Planning Commission on Wednesday. Bill Wong and the Housing Department have done a stellar job of increasing the supply of affordable housing in Pasadena, and I believe the whole council so far has approved everything unanimously. So thank you for that. However, there are now major obstacles to producing more affordable housing. And as much progress as we've made, we all know that we need to make a lot more because the need is still very great. One of the obstacles is funding, and that needs to be addressed. The other is lack of additional sites. Church land can provide a significant amount of that. But a zoning amendment to allow affordable housing on church sites can be passed in a number of ways. Some of those ways make it virtually useless. Let's please not pass something like that. Key to this will be by right zoning versus discretionary. I know cities hate to grant by right zoning, but if it's discretionary, almost nothing will get built. Builders won't have confidence to invest in pre-development. Affluent areas will oppose it being anywhere near them. Please, when it comes back to this council very soon, please pass a strong by right ordinance that will actually work. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to Alan Shea, followed by Olden Denham, followed by Heavenly Hughes, who's not checked in yet. Okay, *6 to unmute. Alan, you're muted. *6 to unmute. Okay, we'll go to Olden Denham. Mr. Denham, *6 to unmute.
Yes.
There you go. I'll give you a 30-second notice. Go ahead.
Okay, I hate to sound like repetitious, but we've heard so for a year and a half now. You've heard the Anthony McClain situation, and I know everyone knows that there is no justification for shooting someone in the back. So at this point in time, your integrity is in question. The whole city council integrity is in question because integrity contains moral truth, and that hasn't happened yet. Here was an opportunity for Pasadena to step ahead in this national fight against racial disparity. And Pasadena chose to go the other way. They chose to do even worse. They chose to try to sweep it under the carpet. We're not going to let it go away. So we need someone to start speaking out about it, especially our city councilmen who are people of color. You have to realize that there's an election coming up, and I'm going to take some words from Martin Luther King. He said, silence is the enemy. And if we don't hear you starting to speak up about what is going on and what should be going on, we're going to take that in consideration when those votes come out. And I don't have to name any names. We know who's speaking up and who's not speaking up. So I'm calling you to call on your integrity and come forth with some morality and some truth. We want the police officer. Originally, we just wanted the police officer fired. Now, all of your questions is, and the question is, do you have the integrity to stand up for what is right? And thank you for this time. Take this all into consideration because there is an election coming up. Silence is an enemy.
Thank you. Heavenly Hughes is not in the meeting. Jasmine Richards Abdullah or Adriana Batista. We can move on to Kat Ross, followed by Michael Williams, followed by Julia R. Ross, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm calling in to ask the City Council to agendize an action item to change the officer-involved shooting policies. I'm hoping the City Council will instruct the City Manager to create a policy requiring that the administrative review of an officer must conclude within 9 months of the incident. This would change the current practice of waiting an indefinite amount of time, sometimes years, for other agencies to finish their proceedings first. before holding officers accountable in Pasadena. The policy should require administrative reviewers to conduct their own thorough investigation, including interviewing witnesses, taking depositions, sworn officer statements, and reviewing video and audio near the time the incident occurred, rather than 2 or 3 years later when that information is harder to come by and less reliable. The review of policy in the Public Safety Committee made it clear that the City Council can act and can act as soon as it agendizes an action item. And I know that last week you said that you're planning to agendize an informational presentation. I sincerely hope that that's only the first step and we'll see an action item following that meeting in February. It's been many months of public comments requesting the council take action. Let's see that action happen.
Thank you. Your time has expired. We'll go to Michael Williams, followed by Julia R., followed by Julie Martinez. Williams, go ahead.
So the first thing is I want to say, I do want to extend my condolences to the family of Miss Hickenbottom. Met her doing my work trying to get the city to hold the officers who killed Kendrick McDade responsible. I met her during that, and it's sad to hear that she has passed. With that being said, I think the city continues to do things that are unscrupable or inscrutable. You keep holding information away from the public about your police department, about the things that are going on in the police department, and it's willfully. This is the second I went and heard to the Zoom meeting by Council Member Rivas, and this is the second time that I have heard ShotSpotter be brought up without including the reasons why ShotSpotter is a danger to the community. How that it is not effective, that it's been shown in many reputable studies to do nothing to stop or quell crime or find shooters. This is the same thing with Anthony McClain, willfully hiding information from the community about the case of Anthony McClain. It is your duty as council members to inform your community, not hide.
Your time has expired.
It is your job to inform people, not hide things. Fire the officers that killed Anthony McClain.
Time has
Do
expired,
your job.
Thank you. Julia R., followed by Julie Martinez. Star 6 to unmute. Julia, I will ring a bell to give you a 30-second warning. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Julia, and I am a teacher. And this year, I have witnessed and been experienced the loss of both a student as well as watching the loss of a student's parent through a student's eyes. Anthony McClain was a son, and when I say I will never forget the scream of the mother who lost her child, I will never forget that. You guys, like has been said, it's been said before, you are parents. I know most of you must be. Imagine having your child shot in the back. Imagine that. And then not to mention also like watching a child go through the loss of a parent. It's almost worse. It's like they become unable to see their own future. This was a father. He had children that he had to protect and work with. What are you guys doing? How many more times do we have to call in? I hear you guys talking about it, but you guys don't do anything about it. And what is like anything without action? It's words. It doesn't actually have any value, right? You have to do something about this. Please. So make sure this does not continue to happen. This is on your hands. So every single week that you add to this, this is you. You are continuing this battle here.
Your time has
You can
expired.
end it at any time. Justice for
Thank you
Anthony
very much.
McClain.
We'll move on to the next speaker, is Julie Martinez. Sarah Brewer Boland is in the queue but is not checked in, so we would move on to Karina Kay.
Good evening. I'm
Go
here.
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good evening. I'm here to demand justice for Anthony McClain. While the entire nation continues to re-examine racism and policing, Pasadena continues to pander towards the police. Unfortunately, we're reading that the city council is considering this controversial automatic license plate readers. I believe that politicizing a pandemic in order to steal more money from hardworking, tax dollar paying citizens here in Pasadena is wrong. You've made so many wrong decisions when it comes to policing that are local. You should never have invested tax dollars into controversial shot spotter. You should never consider spending one more dime on policing. You should never have considered spending money to hire Sheriff Villanueva, the worst sheriff and one of the worst and most dangerous sheriffs in the nation, who's in an open investigation by the FBI and the California Attorney General for the infiltration of multiple gangs within the sheriff department. Instead of spending more money on policing, you should be spending money on community programs such as juvenile diversion programs. You should be utilizing that money for work training for our young kids here in Pasadena.
Ms. Martinez, your time has expired.
Thank you.
We'll move on. Karina Kay, followed by Carolyn Galoni.
Can you hear me?
And I'll give you a 30-second bell. Go ahead.
Thanks. My name is Karina. I'm a Pasadena resident and a member of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. Victor Gordo, I would like to ask you to not start a conversation while public comment is being given. Julie Martinez is the grandmother of Paul Rea, who was murdered by law enforcement. So you need to pay attention to what people are saying to you, because you seem to act as if you don't know what's happening in Los Angeles County, and you all need to wake up. Okay, I'm calling to uplift the demands to fire the officers who killed Anthony McClain. I'm calling to remind you that while you took off Martin Luther King Jr. Day, there is a quote that says, "Our lives begin to end the day that we are silent on things that matter." That means that your lives begin to end the day that you are silent on things that matter. I say this all the time. No one cares about your municipal crap. You have the ability to hold your police department accountable, and you are simply refusing to do so. A man was murdered, shot in the back by a rogue, rabid police force, the Pasadena Police Department, and you all have accepted that behavior as right and as correct, and we will never accept that. Each and every one of you has your time in office numbered, okay? You are not fulfilling the expectations of a community who wants to be safe and who expects not to be shot in the back by law enforcement officials. Get your act together. Fire the officers who killed Anthony McClain. We don't care about a settlement. We care about accountability and justice and true public safety in our communities. You have the power to do it. We expect you to do it.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Carolyn Galoni dropped off. Okay. Kate McInerney, followed by Ruben Munoz. Star 6 to unmute, Ms. McInerney.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes. My name is Kate McInerney. I would just like to once again uplift what community members have been pushing for, to fire the officers that killed Anthony McClain. And just with regards to, as you know, prior people have said, with regards to the motions and discussion earlier on the importance of Black people to Pasadena's history and identity, that type of, that is like so true and so important. And when you say all that, but don't fire these officers or don't seek justice in the way that the family and Black community members want, then that type of stuff becomes performative. So I just want to once again raise this issue and hope that at some point you all will catch on and do the right thing. Thank you.
Ruben Munoz, followed by Victor Hodson, followed by Jill Shook.
Yes, hello. My name is Ruben Munoz. I'm just calling in today just to ask what is the city doing to enhance public safety in a sense of preventative work. It feels like there's always a loud cry, and I hear the people's voice after the blood has been shed. But I think what's more important is what are we doing to stay ahead of the punch? There's been a slaying of a young man, 15 years old, this last week from the Chicano community, and it has devastated many people. Close friends of mine, I know his mother personally, and just an array of just nonsense and just ridiculousness of lack of public safety and commitment to educating our youth, and as well as our justice impacted community, so that we can stop to make the same mistakes that we've continued to make or continue to fall into these traps that have been sociologically placed at our feet for us to fall into. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor Hodson, followed by Jill Shook.
Yes, can you hear me?
Can. Minute 30, go ahead. I'll give you a 30-second warning. Go ahead.
Okay, I am deeply saddened and concerned about the unjust death of Anthony McClain. Anthony McClain was shot twice in the back and killed by Pasadena police officer Edwin McGuindon during a traffic stop in August 2020. Former Pasadena Police Chief Perez has claimed that the video evidence shows McClain holding a gun, but I watched the video and I see no visible weapon. I'm also very troubled that the footage released to the public was edited by Pasadena Police Department with their own voiceover and visuals, telling the public what they want us to see. This does not inspire my confidence in the transparency of the Pasadena Police Department. We need action immediately. Fire the officers that killed Anthony McClain. It's time. We're in a new year. Pasadena City Council, it's time to do something that's for the community and for the people. Show us your leadership, because we know this is wrong. We're going over a year plus. Yes, the family did get financial reparations in regards to the killing of Anthony McClain, but we need the officers to be held accountable and due process. I digress. I give my time.
Thank you. Bill Shook. And we will try Gene Burns and Alan Shea, and then we'll complete public comment on matters not on the agenda. Bill, go ahead. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you for taking my comment. I want to reiterate what Bert Newton said earlier, to please allow churches to have the right zoning that would allow for tax credit housing. This is clearly a matter of racial justice, especially with those churches on North Fair Oaks that are interested in supplying a portion of their land, and churches that are struggling due to extreme gentrification, having lost over 25% of our African American population in our city. I also want to speak to solar power and the grid to help make housing more affordable. Our solar grid program is designed to help lower income households to be able to have solar and to at the same time meet our city's climate goals. I understand that it's about 380 roofs so far in the city that now have solar, which is only perhaps a quarter of the way toward meeting our citywide goal. And so utility companies are trying to disincentivize this and to compete with homeowners rather than wanting to have solar on roofs that and see them as partners with the goal to provide sustainable electric power. So I hope that you'll have your legislative committee look at ways to weigh in on this and to help our city reach its goals.
Your
Thank
time
you.
has expired. Thank you. We'll bring in Jean Burns.
Thank
Jean, are
you.
able to unmute?
Yes,
Go ahead.
sorry for before. I want to speak about affordable housing on church land. I've lived in District 6 for 40 years and been a member of Pasadena Presbyterian Church for 30. Before retirement, I was an attorney and a real estate broker. More than a decade ago, my church began the process of selling their excess land. At that time, my opinion was that the property should be sold to the highest bidder. This year, the first phase of construction is finally going to be completed. It's fortuitous that our church and the developer were able to finance the cost and more than a decade of time needed for the development. I now believe that the highest use of our church assets must be in positively impacting our community as a whole and not just in our church coffers. I believe an opportunity was lost to provide affordable housing to our community. In the past decades, the economics of real estate have changed our city by narrowing the base of residents. This has led to a significant change in what makes Pasadena, Pasadena. For housing purposes, the state designates $94,800 as low income for a Los Angeles County family of 4. More affordable housing will help maintain what makes Pasadena unique. 10 Pasadena churches have are interested in.
Ms. Burns, your time has expired.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll bring in Alan Shea, as he was the last person to try and unmute and wasn't able to. Alan?
Good afternoon, Mayor Gordo and City Council members. Tonight, I just want to share with the city that the community is very appreciative that you released the video last week, as you indicated, Mayor Gordo, so that we can see for ourselves that the young man over in District 4 did in fact have a gun, and it did display the true sense of transparency. And with that being said, as you have heard tonight from all of the callers, we would like to see the same type of support in showing that you're interested in the outcome for the Anthony McClain, so that we can put this chapter behind us and not have folks who would rather be putting their energy into something else calling and voicing themselves, their concerns to you as a city council. So my hope would be that we can start anew here with some real focus on being accountable in the Anthony McClain. They've laid out what their objective is here, and that's, you're going to have to fire the officers. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with this forever and a day. And unless this is something everybody enjoys feeling, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Gordo, our city manager, we look to you for the guidance. You're our leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes public comment on matters not on the agenda.
That brings us to the consent. Anthony McClain homicide by the district attorney's office. Our city attorney's office has kept us apprised, but is there any development that is new that we can share with the community?
I'm not, this is Michelle Bonarise, and no, I'm not aware of anything since last reported to the council. I have periodically contacted the district attorney's office regarding this matter, but I don't have any further updates.
And without any appreciable different information, what are the metes and bounds of the council to act related to some of the questions that are placed to us each Monday by concerned residents related to the Anthony McClain homicide.
I would remind everyone that this matter is not on the agenda. However, I can provide a brief response to comments that and questions that were raised in response to the council member's question related to the members of the public. And one point I would make is that decisions regarding whether to fire a police officer or other city employee does not lie in the city council per our city charter. That is under the administrative services of the police chief and the city manager. So the city council doesn't have authority to fire the officer. And I know that's something that's been raised. And I think that will be the extent of my brief response.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll move on to the consent calendar.
That Councilmember Kennedy had. I keep on hearing that, we're waiting for the DA, we're waiting for the DA, we're waiting for the DA. How about we just finish our investigation? When will that start? When are you going to finish? When is the police department going to finish their investigation to clear the officer or not to clear the officer? We cannot wait 2 years to figure out if this officer deserves to have their job. I've already told you where I stand on it. I do not think the officer deserves to have his job shooting anybody in the back. No one told him not to turn his body on camera. There are so many policy issues there that it's been a dereliction of duty for
Mr. Hampton, before we go on too long,
I'm sorry. I just want to say that it is, we're going to hear this over and over and over again. And this is not good for public safety in general. So we need to do our work. We can't wait for the DA to do their work. We're not hiring anybody from the DA. So that's all I have to say. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, now we'll get to the consent calendar.
Thanks.
You have 1 minute, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know why our time was shortened, but I did a recent public record request on this, and it listed more than 45 agencies, and I didn't get this MOU, so there's a big lack of transparency, and you guys didn't address the lack of data retention policy. Actually, you just boasted vigilance, indefinite data retention. Aside from the major civil liberties infringement and privacy issues, Pasadena is only one of 3 agencies that don't have a retention policy. Where's the adherence to the statutory guidance? You're aware of this, and you made a resolution about vigilant in September of 2020, that first contract, and it has yet to be implemented. So in addition to even more license plate readers, the recent gunshot detection shot spotter contract, the military drones you got, yes, there's military equipment. You're also wanting to get Ring cameras. Are you guys planning on subsidizing them for private residents? When other cities are banning these techs, investigations have shown that these are ineffective and are ripe for abuse. Pasadena is dismissing the concerns and actually embracing a minority report surveilled city. Makes you wonder if there's some kind of kickbacks with these surveillance vendors. Yep, kickbacks. Take Ring, which offers law enforcement agencies free equipment giveaways in exchange for residents getting the neighborhood app or getting Ring cameras. Why are we wasting
Scotty, your time has expired. Move on to Una Lee Yost, followed by Allison Henry, followed by Julie Martinez.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Dear council members, I'm Lee Yost, PhD parent and longtime resident of Pasadena District 4. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on Agenda 7. I'm deeply troubled by the proposed transaction with Vigilant Solutions for automated license plate readers. According to ACLU, the nation's oldest defender of civil liberties, documents received from public records requests paint a, quote, startling picture of automated license plate readers deployed by agencies, quote, with too few rules that is becoming a tool for mass routine location tracking and surveillance. A March 2019 LCU report, in fact, specifically named Vigilant Solutions, noting ICE's, quote, sweeping use of a vast automated license plate reader database run by Vigilant Solutions. ACLU notes that its, quote, grave concerns about the civil liberties risks of license plate readers take on greater urgency as the surveillance information fuels ICE's deportation machine. It says, we already knew that ICE engages in egregious conduct, from arresting a father dropping off his daughter at school to detaining a woman in court seeking a protective order against an abuser. But adding license plate surveillance with its attendant misuse magnifies ICE's threats to community safety. And now we know which local police departments are helping ICE terrorize immigrant communities by sharing license plate information, end quote. ACLU goes on to say that contract documents show that ICE has long desired the ability to locate people with laser.
Your time has expired.
And that the 6.1 million.
I think you heard the lieutenant say specifically that the information would not be shared with ICE. Thank you.
Go on to Allison Henry, followed by Julie Martinez, followed by Lucia P.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Council. My name is Allison Henry, District 3 resident, tenant and housing advocate. Good evening. I echo all the concerns raised by the submitted correspondence as well as the speakers. And I guess I'm just here to say, $165,000, while I understand that some of that is grant funded, I just feel that the council's priorities right now are misplaced. And regarding public safety, I understand the Rose Bowl is a major target, but just in looking at expenses and what public safety means, there was a shooting outside of my house on Tuesday of a young child at 14. One other speaker tonight mentioned the young man. And I would just lift up that what kind of public safety do we have where we have shootings around the Rose Bowl, tenants pushed out of their housing, and homeless camps springing up? What do we mean by public safety? I would just urge the council to really get more aligned with the priorities of the community and look to this sort of money to further fund homelessness prevention as the Pasadena eviction moratorium expires and tenants have 6 months beyond that to repay rent. I would urge the council to really rethink what we're funding, who we're funding, and whose safety we're funding. Thank you very much.
This matter is 100% grant funded, just for the record.
Julie Martinez, followed by Lucia P., followed by Hiram Cormier Jr., followed by Nina Chomsky.
Thank you for this opportunity. I am really shocked at listening. I'm a resident in District 7. I'm quite shocked at listening to how naive many of you sound. First of all, saying that it's a grant. That grant wasn't free. It came from hardworking class folks' pockets. And some of you are saying how they promised not to use the sharing data. Not to get in too difficult on this, but in 2020, the California State Auditor revealed that a series of these companies and cities throughout California, police departments revealed troublesome results in using these. They showed that the policies were deficient and they had not implemented sufficient safeguards. For example, many of them really don't audit. And for all of you to say, oh, but they promised not to share information with ICE. There's been troubling information. ICE uses some of this information, including California, because they seem to find ways to skirt limitations that California has placed on police cooperation with immigration agencies. Have you not been paying attention? This technology is going to be shared, as it says, with other sheriff departments. Have you not paid attention at how many sheriff departments have found out that either members of the sheriffs or even in one case, the sheriff was part of a white supremacist group? ICE will find a way to use it. There's a state audit that shows they have found ways to utilize this data. We do not need more policing. We do not need politicizing of issues.
Ms. Martinez, your time has expired. Thank you. Lucia P., followed by Hiram Cormier Jr., followed by Nina Chomsky.
Hi, my name is Lucia. Along with ShotSpotter, This is an alarming continuation of the creeping increase of surveillance by Pasadena City Police. Whether data will be shared with other agencies or not, and I absolutely do not believe that they will not be sharing data with ICE. The fact alone that it will be controlled by Pasadena Police is enough to make us, the community, say no. We know that law enforcement surveillance disproportionately impacts communities of color. All you have to do is look at our neighbors to the east in Los Angeles, and that traffic infractions often become justification for the disgraceful over-incarceration of Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color. Pasadena Police should not be doing traffic stops or dealing with traffic infractions, full stop. This agenda item only further entrenches their involvement in that part of public safety and underwrites their shameful history of anti-Black policies and practices. Do I need to remind you that Anthony McClain was murdered in the course of a traffic stop? Get Pasadena Police out of traffic stops and fire the officers who killed Anthony McClain while I'm at it. We know you have the power to do it regardless of what you claim are the limitations of your jurisdiction. Justice for Anthony McClain, say his name.
Stick to the matter of
Justice for Anthony McClain, say his name.
Hiram Cormier Jr., followed by Nina Chomsky.
Yeah, so the only thing out of order here is the fact that you keep trying to criminalize communities and pass money off and justify it and interrupt people while they're speaking against the shit that they live through that you do not have to deal with. That is out of order. That's out of order. And in addition to that, shooting someone in the back is also out of order. But in terms of this agenda item, and by the way, everything I just said is related to that item too, and everything everyone else said. But anyway, Dr. King said that there's two evils in society that we always have to fight against, right? That's racism and militarism. And this is a militaristic technology, the same with ShotSpotter. What you're doing is you're waging war on your own community, even though you say you care about it. I'm sorry, but I've listened to several city council meetings where you talk about the threat, quote unquote, of terrorism. So are the cops going to be reading their own license plates? Because they're the terrorists. I have more likelihood of being harmed by a Pasadena police officer and a sheriff officer, deputy, than I do of ever encountering somebody who believes in ISIS ideologies or some shit like that. So please miss me with the bullshit. If it's grant funded, like one caller said, who funds the grant money? Out of whose pockets does that money come from? Ours, taxpayers, people who live in Pasadena, or who are related to people who live in Pasadena, which all of us are. So, as people said, and as I said earlier, we can see right through you.
Your time is expired.
You know, this is a real crime. Just for Anthony McClain, fuck Gordo, and fuck everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Nina Chomsky.
Good evening, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm concerned about this matter. I just discovered it tonight, so thank you for discussing it. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Linda Vista Annandale Association, which seems to get, our area seems to be the one concentrated on with all this. And I haven't had a chance to talk to my board about it, but here are some thoughts that I have that I think they might agree with. First of all, we do value the highest levels of public safety around the Rose Bowl and in the neighborhoods around the Rose Bowl. And I understand Holly Street and the bridge, and I understand Rosemont and North Orange Grove. I don't understand Lida and Linda Vista at all. At one time, 2 or 3 years ago, we had hundreds of ride shares coming in there, and maybe that's the idea, and they would turn on Lida and toward the Rose Bowl and go down there. Now, that is not a main ingress and egress into the Rose Bowl. There are other areas, including over on the East Arroyo side, where there are hundreds and hundreds of more cars that you may want to surveil. But let's talk about the surveillance. This means all the neighbors are being surveilled this way, right? Not just Linda Vista Annandale, not just WPRA, but all of East Arroyo. In fact, all of Pasadena, all the people you want to drive to the Rose Bowl and come to the big events, they're all subject to this. Are we going to have adequate notification so everybody knows that they're subject to this? I don't think people anticipate this going into effect, and I think we will have to notify everybody. So I hope you will consider this further.
Your time is expired.
And also consider scheduling the whole Lida Linda Vista idea and put that elsewhere. Thank you.
That completes public comment on this item.
Okay, Mr. Hampton was first in the.
Start with Nicholas. There's a couple after that as well.
Okay.
One
Good
minute and
evening.
30 seconds. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Nick Platte, and I'm a gardening instructor at Learning Works Charter School here in Pasadena. I, too, am an intern at the Rose Bowl Stadium, helping with their composting operation and newly installed food waste processing machine. I participated in the public tour that was held recently and learned even more about the viability and potential for building local composting infrastructure with the kind of processes and systems put in place at the Rose Bowl Stadium. I believe that our two systems at the Rose Bowl are adaptable at the school campus level. As an instructor who teaches gardening to youth and young adults, there are far more benefits to composting locally than just complying with AB 1383. The younger generation is introduced to an entirely new way of handling their food scraps, as